Alright, welcome everybody. Well, clearly I said this in my last video, and I'm trying to build some momentum back into making some videos. So this is gonna be titled filler episode, as is really what it is. And I won't lie, at the back of my mind, I kinda knew this would happen and I would just absolutely stop making videos. But here I am, and I thought I would actually return with an absolute banger of a video to give you my top 4 sumo deadlift tips. Woohoo! During this period of hiatus from making videos, I was just really contemplating or really just building my confidence as a coach, even as I was increasing in clientele, and also just being more confident and building more confidence as a coach that I do have the knowledge that can genuinely help people out on the internet, and I'm not giving misinformation, yada yada yada. I just had a lot of back and forth with that essentially. So here I am making my first ever top whatever video. I do want to genuinely give tips and tricks and actually help teach people on the internet on how to be a better powerlifter, better lifter, lifting wisdom. Let's get right into it. Top 4 sumo deadlift tips that I'm going to give out. 3 of these are going to be technical tips that I can give in the sumo deadlift, and the last one is really just kind of like a programming tip, I guess. This is all based on my experience as a lifter and also just from coaching my clients and my athletes. Let's get right into it. So tip number 1, getting straight into it, is push the slack out of the bar using your legs. Now, in order to demonstrate this, I'm actually going to jump onto my computer and we're going to transition to my screen recording. Alrighty. Now we're on to the screen recording, so let's get right into it. Unfortunately, all my examples are gonna be of myself. I did not ask permission from my clients to actually show their videos, so I'm just gonna use myself. All right, yes, a very nice name right here. But essentially, let's talk about pushing the slack out using our legs. So as you can see right here, even as I grab the bar, just watch this video first, I guess, and then you can actually see what's happening and what I'm gonna talk about. So from there, what I've done, now that you've seen the sumo deadlift, as soon as I grab the bar, I'm using my legs to which is gonna be another tip later, right? But I'm gonna actually push myself away from the barbell, all right? So using my legs, using my feet all the way up. As soon as my hips hike up, my feet is pushing into the ground, right? I'm pushing my feet into the ground, right? And what that does, it causes my arms to kind of lengthen or elongate, I guess. So it makes my arm nice and long while I'm pushing myself away from the bar. It's kind of like as if you're trying to push yourself longer, like push yourself away from that barbell. All right, so my torso is actually going, my upper back at least, it's like going away from the bar, right? While my legs are pushing into the ground. And as soon as I do that, I am constantly pushing with my feet. So my feet is constantly pushing. As soon as my hips hike up, they're pushing into the ground. Okay, and from there, I'm slowly wedging myself in. So from here, I'm wedging in while still pushing with my feet. Okay, and then that causes the bar to float up nicely and finish the lift, essentially. Now I got one more example for you guys. So just over here, there we go. This is from a recent meet preparation. Well, not meet preparation, a recent meet that I did. Where basically managed to finish on a 9 for 9 day, finish off with a nice RPE 8 to 7. I'll say RPE 8. I'm just gonna be honest with myself. RPE 8 260. All right, but we're just very happy to see that there was actually a lot more in the tank. So very happy with that. But just from a front view this time, so that you can see again over here as I bend down, I grab onto the bar, I'm push myself away with my feet. All right, so my feet is pushing into the ground, pushing myself away, and keep that tension. So if you look at the barbell, right, this is one thing that you can actually see in your own lift as well, is that if you look at the bar, let's go in a little bit more, that is as soon as I grab onto the bar, it stays up there, all right? You can see how as soon as I bend down and grab the bar, it stays up right there. See the bar kind of like bends and it stays there. And swing in, and then the bar bends even more because I'm pushing into the ground even more, right? So hopefully you're able to see that, and I hope I explained that well enough and clearly enough, trying to make this super simple. Essentially, push with your legs as soon as you hip hike. When you're swinging in, keep that tension of that pull with your legs. All right. So instead of rather than using your arms, so if I expand my bubble, a lot of people like to use their arms to try and pull the slack with the arms instead. It gives this kind of like a weird action of this type of thing, right? It's like they're trying to yank the bar with their arms. But instead, if you think about using your legs and keep your arms long, when you push with your legs, instead that elongates your arms, so it makes your arms feel nice and long while pushing with your feet into the ground, and then keep pushing as your hips drive in. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you guys got something out of that. Alrighty, and on to tip number 2, and that is to essentially flatten the foot as you wedge in the sumo deadlift. Right, now what do I mean by this? So I actually got this cue from Matt Vena, who is a very well-known powerlifting YouTuber. You can check him out. So actually all credit to him. But when I actually try this, now not for many cues, I do get very hesitant to give cues here and there, because sometimes, you know, there's a typical gym thing where like someone just tells you a cue and you're like, oh, let me try that, and then it just works terribly for you. So I do get really cautious when to give cues, but this cue for me, in my personal experience, has worked wonders, and that is to actually think about kind of like that calf raise motion, right, when you are wedging into the sumo deadlift, right? It's almost like you're trying to flatten that foot. So pretend this is your foot, right? You're flattening that foot as your hips jump in, right? I'm actually gonna jump into the loom again and show you guys. So if we just take a look right here, we're gonna look at some feet, guys. All right, so I'm joking. Yeah, that was not funny. But we're gonna take a look at, yes, we are actually gonna take a look at some feet. But if we take a look here at my legs, as you can see, when I swing in, my foot, yes, because we usually during the wedge, I'm not really going to talk about this too much in the sumo deadlift, but we're going from more of that heel pressure, right? As from hinging, right, in a sumo deadlift, and as we swing, get that pendulum swing of our hips, right? As we swing, usually the force transfers from our heel onto the front of our foot, all right, or like that midfoot. So even as we swing in, as you can see, that foot kind of flattens into the ground, right? Let's just take a look real quick again. As that when I come in, it's like going from that heel pressure, right? And then as I grab onto the bar and I want to push myself away from that barbell, right? I'm flattening that foot, right? And swinging in and maintaining that pressure. So this first tip and second tip kind of bleeds into one another, right? From that first tip of pushing yourself away, and then the second tip of flattening that foot helps with that pushing yourself away from that bar. All right, so think about essentially doing like a calf raise. So you're doing a calf raise type motion, right? As you wedge in. I think for me that has been extremely, extremely beneficial, and it's something that I've been relaying to my clients as well. Let's go back to the iPhone camera. Heck yeah. All right, so I'm back. Tip number 3. I'm just jumping back and forth. But tip number 3 is to actually prioritize force production, or like power, I guess, over leverage. What I mean by that is that for the sumo deadlift, I think a lot of people try too hard to actually fit themselves in this overly wide sumo stance position, toes super far out, really upright torso, and they're trying to fit themselves into this camp of sumo deadlift, like you're kind of like squatting the weight up. But what I would actually recommend, especially for people just starting out with sumo, is just go into a hip stance that is comfortable. What I'm really grateful for is that when I first entered into, learning the sumo deadlift, because I was a conventional puller, but when I was transitioning to, maybe making the sumo my primary deadlift, was that I just started off about a hip width that was comfortable. If anything, my sumo actually got narrower as time went on, and I don't know, it might change here and there. But what I always recommend is that you want to find a position that is, number one, really stable, right? So if you are going in a really wide stance in the sumo deadlift and you're forcing yourself into this super upright, really wide stance position, but you're constantly losing position at the top and you're losing balance and you start to wiggle and you always miss your last deadlift because of that, then I would recommend actually changing your sumo stance perhaps. Finding a position where you can actually just push into the ground. What I usually like to tell people is that treat your sumo deadlift like a conventional deadlift, just with your feet further out. That's it. last tip that I'm gonna mention is I'll be super honest that I have not done a lot of research on this at all, but I have just from my observation of elite athletes, and actually yeah, mainly just my observation on elite athletes that this seems to be a current trend as well. But I have noticed I'll be honest, I haven't actually seen too much of the rewards on my own clientele, but I have seen it definitely really myself reaping the rewards of this. And my last tip, basically, tip number 4, is to essentially train the sumo deadlift. It's to train the conventional deadlift. Train the conventional deadlift for your sumo deadlift. Now, again, someone coming from a conventional deadlift background, and basically recently I used to do obviously the typical secondary deadlift of pause deadlifts or something like that, but I've been running, my coach and we've been running this macro cycle for quite a while now of just pushing conventionals as my secondary and then pushing the sumo deadlift for my primary day, right? I know some people kind of do they do a pause sumo at the end after doing some conventionals, things like that. I've seen those as well. But now with powerlifting getting and exploding as a sport, and a lot of people coming in, and as you see, if you look just in competitions, even elite level competitions, there are not many people pulling conventionals, right? And because when people first get introduced to powerlifting, they watch all these elite athletes and they'll go straight to sumo deadlift when they haven't even been in the gym for that long or haven't even pushed conventional deadlifts for that long yet to really build up, those erector strength, your posterior chain, build your glutes, your lower back, your hamstrings, that hinge strength, right? And they get straight into the sumo deadlift, right? Trying to maximize their leverage and over-optimize their leverage without pushing the conventional deadlift and actually building up strength in that area, which is why I think this is a highly underrated tip in my opinion. I'm actually even seeing it recently in a lot of elite athletes. I know Austin Perkins is the greatest pound for pound at the moment, right? Pushing conventional deadlifts. I think I was listening to Colton Phillips where he interviewed Joe Stanek and they were talking about Austin's programming. So, doing conventional deadlifts and seeing Bob Matthews, where, pushing conventional seems to really blow up his sumo deadlift. And even just seeing some of my friends as well on the gram pushing conventionals, that seems to really be helping the sumo deadlift in terms of just building that posterior chain strength. So that's my final tip for the sumo deadlift. Those are my top 4 tips for now on sumo deadlift. Hope you got something out of this, and let me know in the comments below if you tried any of these tips. Hope this video helped you. Hopefully more videos soon. I better not slack off. 2025. Let's go.